Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Champs After Dark. I am your host, Jim Day. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyTaz, and we got a special show for you tonight. Of course, my co-host, Mr. Andy Singleton, is here with us, and we have a special guest. We'll get to them in a minute, but Andy, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, and I just tweeted out a not so special guest, but I am thrilled and couldn't miss this for the world. I had some issues with the AC, so I'm outside trying to catch some cool air. I might melt while we're out here. I might lose internet and Wi-Fi connection, so bear with me. But I couldn't miss an opportunity to match wits with my good friend Sal Leto, who I have been taking numerous jabs at over the past 2 weeks with the fishbowl going on. So, Sal, welcome to my show. I am inviting you. It's not my show alone, but it's our show. You, of course, had Jim on the Podathon, my other co-host, Frank, who's not with us tonight. And somehow, yeah.
Frank wasn't on either.
Oh, well, I can't speak for that. But Sal, man, I boosted the Podathon ratings last year tremendously. So much so you sent me a gift basket, and this year completely forgot. So I don't know what to say.
Well, first of all, thanks for welcoming me to Jim's show. I appreciate it. And yeah, you and you and Frank said Frank made a completely different story up on the show last week. I listened to last week's show that I reached out to him and apologized. I never apologized because Frank said he was coming on with Jim, so I just assumed when Jim booked, Frank would be there. So Jim obviously had some good sense and realized Frank is a ratings killer, which is why he's not here tonight. And I'll say this to Andy. Andy was so funny. He came in last year, his couch, he was all sprawled out, He was inviting Scott to his wedding. And Andy is I love Andy. First of all, I love all my guys from New York. And Andy's been getting a little loose on Twitter, but I like letting him have that. He's I believe he's a fireman in his real job, and I got nothing but respect for the first responders. So I go easy when responding to him, but he's getting a little close to pushing the envelope.
Sal, is there any way you can push your camera up a little bit? We're getting like from your nose down.
Oh, it's a
good angle.
You're not getting from the nose down. It's a big nose, Jim. It's taking up. It's taking up. I'm trying to avoid that light for you guys.
So we've touched on the fact of the Podathon, and folks, if you don't know what the Podathon was, this is something that Sal and his two co-hosts, Kevin and Steve, put together last year to help aid Scott Fish collect for Fantasy Cares, and they did a 24-hour Podathon last year and had great success, and it was fun, and a lot of people were involved. But this year, they ramped it up quite a bit. As a matter of fact, it was actually a 25-hour Podathon this year, and they had some great guests, including, guys like Matt Berry and, well, of course, me and some others, of that kind of stature on the show. And it was really fun. It was a good thing. And, they went for the whole 25 hours. So, Sal, give us your thoughts on the whole thing, and how much sleep did it take afterwards to get caught up?
First things first, in all seriousness, Andy, it was my bad for not getting you on the show this year.
No, it's all good. I tease you.
A great guy in the industry, and I consider a friend, and that's on me. I got, so to your point, Jim, when I opened it up this
meanwhile,
year,
Frank can go screw himself.
No, if I mean Frank, the guy's slightly crazy, Frank, right? Frank's child was born during last year's Podathon. We announced it live on the Podathon.
Oh, nice.
That was crazy. He was in there all day. He's like, I got to leave, guys. We're going to the hospital. Anyway, we had some nice success last year, but when I opened it up this year, the level of fantasy analysts that contacted me that wanted to be on this show, almost an hour of me opening it up on a Sunday morning, Heath Cummins reached out to me, and I was like, wow, I've never had any contact with Heath ever. I think he's a great guy, an excellent member of the industry. Personally, I've never had contact with him. So when he reached out to me, I was like, well, this is going to be a good year. And then Matthew Berry, I've known for about 4 years now. He was one of the people to help get our show originally started. We started on the Fantasy Life app. So this guy,
he just is. He's just one of the nicest guys ever.
For the level of where he's at, the time that he takes and gives back to people in the industry and to small people, there's really nobody better. And then the reason it was 25 hours this year is none other than the prima donna Mike Wright of the Fantasy Footballers, who, when I reached out to Mike and I said, can you come on this year? Because last year they were traveling, doing the live shows. He said, absolutely. He said, give me this time. And I'm like, the time's booked. And he said, well, who is it? And can I beat them up? And I said, at the time it was Paul Charchian, who unfortunately had jury duty and didn't end up making it. But I said, Mike, I'll extend it to 25 hours. You could come on at noon in New York, 9 o'clock your time. And he was locked in. He closed. What a way to close the show out. And so many amazing people in between. I thank everybody from the little, the medium, to the huge full-time analysts. We went over and above what we did last year. We hope to continue it every year, make it bigger and more successful.
Yeah, I actually offered to come meet up with wherever he was recording it at, just to, slap him silly if he was dozing or falling asleep. But I probably, in hindsight, I didn't realize it was happening until it was happening. So I probably could have made it anyway. But speaking of weddings, you were also invited to the big extravaganza last summer, but unfortunately weren't able to make it. So you definitely are a friend and a brother of mine. So all the teasing I do with you aside, you are a great person for this, industry and what you've been doing with this Podathon. So it's been helping to bring awareness to the Fantasy Cares. And I said last week, I think that's going to raise 6 figures this year. I'm putting the number at over 100,000. I think they're going to bring in. So what you guys do with that, goes in a large part towards that. So thank you for, on behalf of everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a small thing that I can do. It's a little part of my time out of my life. It's really minuscule to what Scott has created. And if we didn't mention Scott directly, that guy he inspired me. Jim, don't give any credit to Steve and Kevin. I planned all of it. He inspired me, and I hope to just follow in his footsteps for years to come.
So are we going to talk about football tonight?
Oh,
yeah,
football.
Let's talk about football. The Podathon was about football. It's about Scott Fishbowl football. So stop. But of course, the big news of the day today, and actually got me ranting on my earlier show. I think I went into a 4-minute rant on the Frenzy today about this. But of course, Tyreek Hill, the NFL comes out and says there will be no suspension. He's ready to go for training camp and for the season. And, let's everybody at this point should know how I feel. I want to hear how our guest feels. Sal, what's your thoughts on Tyreek Hill? Where are you drafting him? Are you drafting him? Give us a rundown.
Well, listen, here's my thing when it comes to fantasy football. We're playing this game to win, right? So if you want to win, if these guys are going to play in the games, you draft them accordingly. If you really feel like you don't want somebody you feel like is a bad person on your team, I get it. I respect it. For me personally, I like to win. I don't have any Tyreek Hill, dynasty stock. He's not a guy I've owned really. But my feelings on where he's going to be going, he's a top 10 wide receiver to me. I think he's somewhere slotted in the back half of the top 10, where I'm still an Antonio Brown guy. So for me, after Hopkins, Adams, Jones, and Beckham, and Michael Thomas, I'm sorry, I still have AB there over Juju. But I have him somewhere around, Evans, Tyreek Hill. I just think what he can do when he gets his hands on a football, whether it be running it or receiving it or returning it, is something very few could do with that level of speed. So my overall opinion on the situation, I don't know what to make of it. The NFL has been so quick to give suspensions to guys, even when there was not legal action taken against them. My only opinion is I think they must have done due diligence. There really was not enough fire surrounding that smoke. Him and his partner, the mother and father of that child, are toxic humans. They're toxic together. They're not good people. And the person I feel worse for of all this is that child who's going to have to live his life being raised by them, either together or separately. So I don't know what to say other than if he's playing and you want to win, have him on your roster.
How about you, Andy? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so a couple things in regards to this. I was on the Adam Ronis full-time fantasy hour on fantasy today, and I referenced you, Jim, and how we've been talking about this for the last month or so that we've been doing this show, and just basically your take, like, why are we don't know what happened. Why are we assuming the worst already? And I was maintaining that even if this followed the Ezekiel Elliott model and he got 6 games, he was still a top 20 wide receiver in just those 10. And let's let this play out. I think Sal's on to a point where the fact that we're finding out this news in July so quickly, like the rush to judgment to say nope, no suspension, is really kind of telling that they didn't take longer to say, let's review this a little longer, let's get more details. There's no rush. Training camps haven't even started yet, so I think that's pretty telling. As far as the point of your morals and where that stands, listen, this might be a bad analogy, but if you see $1 on the street, you're picking it up. It's money. It's still $1. It's still spendable somewhere. That dollar could have been passed through all kinds of dog excrement. It could be carrying diseases on it, and you're still picking it up because it's $1. That's what we're playing in fantasy football. So you got a guy who's going to win you money, win your league. Like, I get it if you're really that adamant against it, but I guess we don't have to worry about that now, because from what the law is saying and from what the commissioner is saying, this isn't even really something they're really that concerned about. So I think I tweeted out today when the news broke, congrats to all those who got early shares, because you got them for a huge discount.
Yeah, I got them all over the place. I have a ton of them. And this is why, everybody always asks. I always draft early. I start drafting early. As a matter of fact, this year we started our first draft the day after the Super Bowl. And you know what? Most of that was just fun and all that. But it gets to a point when you're drafting early that if you take these risks, you can really get some great bargains if you know how to sift through all the miasma of all the information coming out, what might be good, what's garbage, what should you listen to, what shouldn't you listen to. It can really give you an edge. And, the one thing, I've been following this whole story right from the get-go. And, I heard the shortened version of the audio they put out where he told her she had to be worried about him. And, that's fine. But later on, they came out with the full version that they had with all of the info on it. And I got to tell you that, if you really listen to that and really take in what he's saying, it really leads me to believe that most of this almost didn't happen, at least not in a way where he was involved in anything negatively, including the first one. And that's where I'm going to leave it. So the fact of the matter is, I've been saying all along, I thought they'd give him a 4-game suspension and then he'd appeal it down to 2. So I was grabbing him everywhere, because even missing 2 games, he was still worth where you were getting him. Heck, 3 weeks ago, I was getting him in the 7th round. I couldn't pass that up. So, lately it started inching upward, and we were starting to get into the 4th now. And now, of course, he's just going to shoot up, probably going to be in the first half of the 2nd round now. Some people might even take him in the 1st. I have him. We redid our projections today at FF Champs, and I have him currently now as my number 4 wide receiver.
Wow.
Just that quarterback. That quarterback just makes too many things happen, and I'm not a huge fan of Sammy Watkins.
Wow.
So, I'm not going to get into all the rest of it. I think I'm glad they finally made the right choice. Everybody says, oh, the girl was paid off because she didn't come talk to the NFL. You know what? Even if there was a payoff, the NFL would have suspended him. If there was any kind of a hint of impropriety in any way, shape, or form, the NFL would have suspended him. There's no doubt in my mind, somewhere along the line, they would have suspended him for some time. So for the fact of the matter that they didn't, for first time ever, I'm going to say kudos, NFL. You did the right job for once, and because this has always been my biggest pet peeve is how they do these suspensions and punishments are all over the board. So that's it. I don't want to get into too much.
What did you have?
Anything else to say?
I just wanted to ask you. You said you had him at 4 right now. What did you have him, if you remember, before this?
I think I had him at 17.
Yeah, because I'm just looking now. I have him at 28, but he's definitely getting bumped up. I don't know the 4, but definitely bumped up in that top tier 5 range.
Yeah, he's like 6-7 range for me right now.
Yeah, so the difference between 4 and 7, you're probably talking a couple points a game.
Yeah.
So really not a big deal. It could happen either way. I get that. And for me, a lot of it has to do with the quarterback that he plays with. That's all. So, we'll see. John Laub, who's in the chat room, giving me kudos for saying drafting Hill. Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
I can feel John's energy. I can feel his energy just from hearing his name.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I told him and Liz were my MVPs from the Podathon. He just had so much energy on the show. It was amazing. And then
He
of
always
course Liz
does.
came on half lit, dropping F bombs all over
That
the
was
place.
so funny.
That was funny as hell.
Try covering over 50 rookies with all that energy.
Yeah, I guess.
I love John. That's my co-host on the NFL Draft Profiles. In case you're
Yeah,
wondering
you
what I'm
guys did
alluding to.
a lot of great work this offseason. It was amazing to me.
Thank you,
Yeah, definitely. Both of you guys were putting out great info there and working hard at it. That's all you can ever do. And
John.
I
John
see
writes
you
the
got
scripts
something
for me.
big coming for Expand the Box Score, don't you?
Yeah, we're in the process of giving it a facelift. The expression I've been using is I felt like our product was like lobster, and we were serving that on paper plates with plastic forks, and it just didn't match up to how good the data we're offering is. So we're giving the site itself a facelift and making it look more modern in 2019 and sleek, and hopefully that translates. And yeah, we're going to be adding more sports and adding content and a whole bunch of great stuff coming. So expandtheboxscore.com is cutting edge and is really going to be a very useful tool for gambling, DFS, season long, anything, you name it, any sport, college football, NFL, Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, NBA, and college basketball as well. So really
Wow, that
very
was
busy
supposed to
with
be a
that.
really, really short promo there.
Oh,
Good job,
sorry.
buddy.
All right, I'm done. I'm done.
The whole next half hour, we're going to be hearing about expanding the box store. Go ahead, keep going. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we got
Next
time.
half hour, sponsored by Expand the Box.
Yeah. No, you guys have been doing great work, so I'm glad to hear that. So let's keep moving on to the next piece of news. The Eagles today, of course, went out and muddied the waters everywhere once again by signing Darren Sproles to a 1-year deal. And this time, I'll start with you, Andy. What's your thoughts about the Eagles going out and get Darren Sproles? Does this just mess up the whole backfield once again? Did we lose Andy? Oh, sure
must have
does.
lost
Looks like we
Andy.
lost Andy. Oh, the rooftop wasn't doing him any good. Okay, so I'll go to you then, Sal. What's your thoughts here on Sproles? Does it mess up the backfield for you? Are you concerned about him fantasy-wise?
I mean, I don't think he becomes a fantasy factor in what will be his final year. I think this was a olive branch by the organization to let him go out on his own terms. We know he wasn't able to complete the season last year, which I believe was originally planned to be his last season. And this is, they're going to be a team that's going to be competitive for a Super Bowl again. Let the guy come back. Listen, is he reliable? He's always been reliable his whole career. But they have Jordan Howard. They have Miles Sanders. They have Josh Adams, who I don't know if he's going to be on a team when the season starts, but the kid was, good for them down the stretch last year, kind of like found money. And I had him everywhere in Dynasty, hoping he would be the guy before they traded and drafted guys. But, he'll probably get 3 to 5 touches a game max. He'll be on the field, but I don't think that he becomes fantasy relevant unless there's some injuries or some guys let go of in camp.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think he's fantasy relevant at all. I think for the most part, they might have brought him back to return kicks, use him in special teams type things because he's still got those kind of moves. He can still make that happen. I just don't think we see him much in the offense. The only way is, of course, if Sanders, if those hamstrings are worse than we're hearing, and he's really not ready to go for the start of the season, then maybe he might carve out a little role, no doubt. But if Sanders is back and ready by week 1 or even week 2, I think he takes that job. And, at that point, it's just going to be maybe special teams for him. And that's about it. Let's keep going. Got off topic so much earlier. I love this one. Joe Flacco out there comparing himself to Roger Federer. Unfortunately, I have to point out to Joe, he plays with a different type of ball, Joe. Just saying. And how they are both great. Then said, I have a lot left in the tank. Really depends on what tank you're talking about. Sal, what's your thoughts here on Flacco? Could he have a bounce back out year in this offense in Denver?
Boy, Flacco is just so hard for me. I always used to say the two guys that you never want to start or own in fantasy were always Alex Smith and Joe Flacco. And then Alex Smith goes out and has that year a couple of years ago, and everybody buys into it. And then, unfortunately, he had the terrible injury. But do I think that Flacco could have a bounce back here? Listen, there's a lot of weapons in Denver, a lot of weapons, good young weapons. And from what we're hearing now, Emmanuel Sanders is going to possibly play week 1. So they're loaded at the skill positions, right? But he's Joe Flacco. He is what he is. No, I think Joe Flacco is the 35 to 3,800 yard passer, 25 touchdowns ish max. Maybe 28, and he's a bye-week filler. He's ownable in 2 QB leagues, and the only thing that's similar between him and Roger Federer is that they're both male. Roger Federer is going to probably end up being the winningest tennis player in the history of the sport by the time he's done, and is just what I watched that guy do last weekend, which was probably the greatest male tennis match I've ever watched in my life. The resiliency, I've never seen that from Joe Flacco, even as a young man. So no, it's no comparison.
Now, are you worried at all about Drew Lock coming in and starting this year?
I don't think so. I think if Drew Lock, I mean, unless they're so badly out of it, now I don't think Flacco's our guy going forward, and we want to get Lock some time. Well, I wasn't a huge Lock fan or an anti-Lock fan coming out of college. I was lukewarm on him, honestly. And Elway has not done a good job drafting young quarterbacks and finding the successor to Peyton Manning there. So, no, I don't think that either one of those guys is going to win you a fantasy championship this year.
And I'm with you. And today, his new head coach, Vic Fangio, actually came out and said, yeah, Drew Lock, he's got a great arm. He's just not a quarterback yet. And we knew that coming out of college. I mean, we knew he had the arm, but he was very raw in almost every other aspect of the game. And he wasn't really considered that NFL ready. So it's going to take a little time for them. Flacco's going to get his chance, like you said, and they got the weapons. But, it's funny, the numbers you were throwing out that you think he may get to are numbers like 10 years ago would have been getting him in the conversation for a quarterback 1.
Yeah, it's funny. Such a different game.
He's only going to get 3,800 yards and maybe 28 touchdowns. I can't count on that. So, yeah, it's kind of funny how that's all changed now. It's just too many good quarterbacks in the league to have any need to try and go after Flacco. Unless, like you said, it's either a super flex or a start 2. Then, maybe if you wait really long, that's the guys you end up with. So, very possible. Let's keep going. Next one up is let's talk about some late round gems. I haven't talked with you on stuff like this, so I'd like to get your take on it. Let's start with a quarterback. Who's a late round quarterback that you wouldn't mind taking a gamble on?
Everybody's going to call me a homer for this one, right? But even though I'm born, raised, live in New York, I am an Oakland Raider fan since I'm 8 years old. And I don't understand the thought process that Derek Carr is just not good. Derek Carr, just a few short seasons ago, was on pace, in my opinion, to be in the MVP conversation before having his legs snapped in half. That Raider team was, I believe, won 12 games or 13 games that year. They would have won a first-round playoff game. The fact that they had absolutely no quarterback play in that game was one of the sole factors, or the sole factor, I should say, for them not winning that game. And he's got extraordinary wide receiver weapons, in my opinion. I am a big Tyrell Williams fan from when he was in San Diego and then LA. It's hard for me to say that because they're a rival team, but I always loved the guy's game, and I always felt if he got more attention, he could be a very good wide receiver too in fantasy. And for Antonio Brown to come over, a guy who somebody posted his numbers the other day over the last 5 or 6 years, so far and away significantly higher in every single major category for wide receivers. And the fact that, okay, he lost his mind a little bit for about 2 weeks, and he did what he wanted to do. He wanted out. He played the game correctly to force himself out. He changed the game for wide receivers or these other players to get themselves out of a place they don't want to be at anymore and get traded to a place where he wanted to be, where he knew he was going to be the frontline guy again. What a good, solid young quarterback. And John Gruden, who I wasn't the biggest fan of the Raiders getting, but Gruden's very particular about who his quarterback's going to be. We knew that back when he was with the Raiders the first time. And he didn't draft anybody. He didn't make moves to bring anybody in. It's Derek Carr. So I have him on FF Calculator or Fantasy Football Calculator as 187th player overall, 14th round, 9th pick on ADP right now. Well, you could grab a guy who could legitimately end up being your starting quarterback for the season.
And I'm with you on that. Look, Carr threw for 4,000 yards last year when his tight end and Jordy Nelson were his top two receivers. And his tight end had his greatest year ever. Jared Cook went off the charts, and everybody's wondering if he's going to do that again. Now he's in New Orleans, but the fact that they let him go to New Orleans says a little bit to me. But the fact that you get Antonio Brown there and Tyrell Williams, so you have decent plays on both sides of the field. Of course, Brown is the stud. Tyrell Williams is just a nice big play receiver. But the fact that you have two of them, I think you have to think that Carr can have better numbers than he had last year. I just think Antonio Brown takes a little bit of a hit at touchdowns, but I think his receptions and yardage will be right up there with concurrent years. So, it's going to be an interesting thing to see coming. And I get it. If you're going to wait really long, at best, he's, right now being drafted as a QB2, a late QB2 for, a super flex league or a start two quarterback league. He's probably not being drafted in most start one quarterback leagues. But I get it. I like the thought of the upside with him as well. I think we could easily see him go up to 400 yards. And if he increases that touchdown total even a little bit from last year, he's going to be in the mix where he could be in the top 15 quarterbacks.
He has a 32 touchdown season, remember.
Oh, I do remember.
4 years back.
He hasn't seemed to be quite the same since that injury.
Mm-hmm. True.
And you can't blame him. I mean, that was a gruesome injury, and it takes a lot of mental work to get past something that bad.
Right.
And I'm not holding it against him. Again, he threw for 4,000 yards with a ragtag bunch of players last year on a bad offense. So I'm not going to take that away from him. And it's not like the defense has gotten so much better this year that he's not going to have to throw to keep them in games. I'm going to go for a name that, to me is just shocking where it's been landing in the current FFWC high stakes leagues ADP. Tom Brady, his ADP is 1701, 17th round first pick, as the 25th quarterback off the board. Hello?
Yeah, it's insanity.
Say what? I don't know what you people are thinking, what you're smoking. Maybe you have a few too many Skittles. I'm not sure what's going on in these people's mind. I don't care what you think. Tom Brady ain't finishing 25th quarterback. So to me, every time I can, I'm just waiting, and I just go in back and grab Phillip Rivers and Tom Brady as my 1-2 punch and loving every minute of it.
Did you say you had Skittles?
No, I think he had Skittles. Oh, there you go. Andy's back.
I'm back, guys. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but I'm jumping in on this Tom Brady conversation because I agree with you in principle, but this is also why it's coming to the level of one QB leagues are just becoming stupid, because outside of the top 3, then you get the next 20 that are all basically in line. So you say Tom Brady's not finishing as the QB 25. Now I would agree that I don't think he is, but why would you think that? Because he's had almost an equal number of 25-ish touchdowns as he has 30 plus. So you take away some of his weapons. You had some rookies in there, more of a commitment to running the ball, that kind of stuff. I could see maybe he finishes with 23 touchdowns and 10 interceptions or something, which would be a great year. But, if that's somewhere in the 4,000-yard range as opposed to 4,500 or 5,000, maybe he is closer to that QB 25. So I don't think it's horrible, but the scary thing for me is that this guy just keeps getting better as he ages. Apparently he's faster now than he was in high school, which is absurd to think about, or at the combine. I forgot what the thing I saw was, but his Twitter game is on point. He's trolling people that are saying, his Madden rating wasn't good enough, and now you hear the Gronk 40% coming back number, which I think I had it at 50-50 going back probably 2 months now, and I still think that's more like 75%. I just don't think they let this unique window close without exhausting all options. So I think he finds a way to get back there, but I don't think it's absurd that he's QB 25. I just think it just seems blasphemous to think that you would allow him to fall that far.
Well, here, let me just put it in better terms. Right now, he's going behind guys like Andy Dalton, Sam Darnold. Look, no, just no. It's simple, just no.
Yeah, that's common.
You sold me.
I just can't see it. And I think N'Keal Harry's going to be better than people expect. Just me. I'm just saying.
I hope so, because I got him in the same eliminator league that I took Tyreek Hill in the 5th round. So
let me tell you what, the physical tools are there, and the guy, as much as he's, he doesn't have that Randy Moss speed, but he's got that Randy Moss ability. But he also has that ability to take the short pass,
down
the field. He plays at both ends. He's both types of wide receiver. So I think you're right. I don't foresee anything but positivity coming out of N'Keal Harry.
Let me just make this clear. I wasn't saying I agree
I get
that he's a QB 25.
The possibility exists, and you're right. And one thing I've learned over the years is it's really hard to say that cannot happen. It really is, because we've seen so many crazy things happen. If somebody would have told you even halfway through the season last year that Damian Williams would become fantasy viable, you would have laughed him off the stage. There's no way in heck you would think that would happen, but we've seen it happen time and again. So the possibility exists. Based on history, based on what he's done with, other teams where he didn't have all the weapons around him, I'm going to bet on him.
I'm curious.
That I'll live with that.
I'm kind of curious, though, with all the Patriot haters that exist, if this is some, we were talking about this with Tyreek Hill before, morals and stuff. If some of that ADP is dropping because people are saying, I can't roster Tom Brady because I hate the Patriots for all this winning they've done.
I love those people. Thank you. Well, I say thank you to all of those people for giving me such nice value. I appreciate it. Thank you. Send me your name, your address. You'll be on my Christmas card list next Christmas.
Oh, I want a Christmas card, Jim.
Well, hey, I got your address now.
That's true.
Watch what you say. My wife is the card lady from ever. Once you get on her list, then you get cards for everything. I'm not kidding. We own stock in Hallmark. So let's move on to running backs. Let's talk some late round running backs. And Andy, since you're back and we're not sure how long, we'll go to you.
Oh, what am I doing here? Oh,
late round
I don't have
running backs.
Oh, crap. Start with Sal. Let me get you
one. We'll go to Sal. Obviously, it wasn't only the air conditioning went out.
No, I didn't see that. I looked at the notes you had. I didn't realize that was a question.
Oh, no, those notes weren't the notes I had. Those notes were had by the gentleman who's not here tonight.
All right.
No show. Yeah. Frankie no show. Hey, for me, guys.
That's a great name. We'll have to leave that.
For me, guys, I like to take chances a little bit later with maybe a rookie who I feel could get some playing time. Maybe he's not the frontline guy, but I like Justice Hill. I like his skill set. I like what they're going to do in Baltimore. I could definitely see him playing a role similar to Kamara. Is he Alvin Kamara? That's not what I said. But Mark Ingram is Mark Ingram, and Mark Ingram's role is what it is. And Lamar Jackson, I don't expect to be making any huge downfield plays. I expect a lot of dumping off to Justice Hill, and I think it could be a nice three-way combo: Jackson, Ingram, and Hill. And I'd like to take a chance at where I could get him on a possibility of getting a Kamara light.
Now, I have to say this. I actually like that pick, and I'll tell you why. Man, I wish I could remember who wrote it. There was somebody who wrote a good article a couple of weeks ago about how Ingram has never played in an offense that used RPO offense. He's never been that guy to play in that scheme. And he went on to point out that, the differences between playing in that scheme as a running back and not playing in that scheme, and the differences were pretty vast. So it kind of led me down the path to where I'm starting to doubt what he's going to do in this offense. And then when you add in the fact that Lamar Jackson is going to run as much as he does, and who knows how many goal line chances he's going to take away from him, and all of that, I've really started to sour on Mark Ingram because that has me concerned. Maybe we'll find out differently come training camp and preseason. But right now I've been a little sour on him. What's your thoughts on him, Andy?
I'm still looking for a guy for you, and I thought I had one, and you just can.
Okay, well, while you keep looking, I'll go into
I
mine. How's that?
I was just a kid in the class when the teacher called on, and you were like lost in a thought, like
Andy's trying to hide his boner.
Oh man, nice. I'm so glad this is
this is
after
a
dark.
family show. Sal.
I listened to last week's episode. There was some foul language, sir, and most of it was directed towards me.
Yeah, it was all directed towards you. I got a few names. I mean, it depends on how late we're going. I like the Justice Hill pick. I didn't love Justice Hill when we evaluated him in our draft profiles. I felt like he went down pretty easily with contact, but he does have some explosiveness. He did put up some prolific numbers in college. He is a little versatile in his abilities. I like what you had said there. Other guys in this kind of range, I'm feeling Edo Smith. Matt Breida is just a dog, but I think I'm going to choose Kalen Ballage. And it's not that I love him, but I don't love Kenyon Drake, and they don't really have much else there. And I think Ballage is more of the potential early down guy. I mean, he's got 6'2", 230. Like, this is a big guy. It was limited sample last year, but 5.3 yards per carry. He's going.
Yeah, very limited sample. Let's really emphasize that point.
Oh, extremely limited. But if you're swinging for the fences, I want a guy who could be in line to steal, a 200 carry season. And I think, he could be the guy that could steal a 200 carry season. I mentioned Edo Smith. I don't think he's getting 200 carries. And even if Devonta Freeman goes down again, I still don't think he's getting 200 carries. Ballage, though, I think could be that guy. And it's not even anything to do with this college. He never had that many carries in college, but just that sheer size alone, you look at it, you think, okay, there's not really much else in Miami. I like Myles Gaskin a lot, but so far I haven't heard anything, really positive about him stealing the show like I think he has potential to. So Ballage is like that late round guy that I think if he's swinging for the fences, that could be a lottery ticket.
Like I always say, he's one play away from starting. Really, if the headliner goes down with one injury, he's one play away. That's what you're looking for, and that leads me into my guy, Mike Davis. He's coming off the board right now at the end of the 16th round as the 66th running back off the board. So you don't have to invest anything in him. He showed last year he can do a little bit of everything with Seattle. I think he's still going to play a backseat right now to Montgomery. But if Montgomery slips up at all, if Montgomery is putting the ball on the ground in preseason and stuff like that, and it's it's not like he puts the ball on the ground. He doesn't have that rep. I don't want to say he does. I'm just saying, things get changed when you come to the NFL. Things could be different. Maybe he's not picking up the blitz as well as he did in college. Who knows? But if any of that happens, Mike Davis could be that guy, again, one play away from becoming the starter. And exactly why I like him.
One play away. And not to say you don't like him for your own independent reasons, but I recall hearing Scott Engel, kind of blowing up Mike Davis, and I'm thinking that's because of his love for the Seattle Seahawks. Which, I don't get this. I don't get this Mike Davis love. I really don't. I don't think David Montgomery is in jeopardy of anything other than injury. I think he'll come in and be ready to go from day one. And I really like Montgomery a lot. I actually touched on that with.
Wait, you're reading it wrong. I like Montgomery a lot too. I have a lot of shares of Montgomery. I'm not saying that.
I just don't think
Mike. The one play away. One injury is one play. It can happen in any play, and he's one play away. If Montgomery goes down, then Mike Davis is going to be the guy who steps in and takes over that main role.
100%, but I'd rather view him as $1 away as a fab acquisition than a roster spot that I'm using for that one play away. That's just how I'm looking at Mike Davis.
Yeah, but again, it depends on the deep depth of your roster. Like I said, he's a 16th round pick. So in a normal size league, he's not really going to get picked most
I'm
times.
talking dynasty 55-man rosters.
Yeah, right. Well, then in that case, why wouldn't he be owned?
I'm saying I wouldn't. I wouldn't want him. I'm not buying
that's
into
your choice. I thought your pick was sucky too.
Hold on, Sal.
Break it up, fellas.
Okay, let's go to wide receiver. Sal, who you got at wide receiver?
A wide receiver, I have Traquan Smith. I mean, listen, Drew Brees is still alive. Drew Brees is still there, and I expect him. I expect a little bit more of a passing game this year than we've seen in recent memory in New Orleans, and we've seen consistently what a number 2 wide receiver could do in that offense, and he's kind of all been but forgotten in this year's drafts. I feel like he's just, oh, look, he's still there, you know. And so Traquan Smith is a guy I'm grabbing late, and I'm hoping I'm getting some old school New Orleans love from my number 5 wide receiver on my roster.
My only problem with Traquan Smith is Ted Ginn is still there. If
Ted
Ginn had moved on, I'd feel a lot better about that. But Ted Ginn can still get up and go too.
He definitely could, but can he stay healthy?
And that's the deal. But he's still there.
He is, and he does enough to be a thorn in the side of a play like that, right? He doesn't necessarily have big reception totals, but he has that big play, and he takes that touchdown. So I could see what you're saying, and I say to you like you did to Andy.
I think they're both good choices late in best ball leagues. Either way, that's the only way I would take either of them anyway. Andy, how about you? Do you have a wide receiver? Or should we come back to you in a little while?
No, there's a ton of guys I love in this range, and you know, anywhere from the Devontae Parker infatuation to Andy Isabella to Deshaun Hamilton, who's Penn State all-time leading receiver, who I think is completely underappreciated. And you know, you're talking about Flacco got signed off, and you know, he's capable of finding him. There are a lot of guys in this range. I think Marquise Brown is going to start slow and then come on strong, as did what's his face?
As long as he catches
DJ
3-yard passes, that's as far as Lamar can throw it and it actually hit somebody.
Well, fair enough. But the guy I was going to go with, actually, I'm seeing 2 veterans here that I really think, you know, are great late round targets. One being Marquise Goodwin, who last year was like a 5th round top kind of pick, and now is all the way down in the teens. And then the other being John Brown, who
there's a reason he's down in the teens, though.
Okay, well, you'll tell me that after I tell you why is John Brown, you know, even further behind than Michael Goodwin. I'm sorry, Marquise Goodwin. John Brown was having a phenomenal pace with, again, go back to Joe Flacco. This is 6 degrees of Flacco here, but yeah, John Brown has been anytime he's been healthy. This is a guy that has put up tremendous production in his career, and this, you know, people talking about, oh, well, the rapport that Foster and Allen seem to, you know, form down the stretch. What if that was just, you know, because that was the best available option? What if John Brown is just a better talent and can have an even better rapport with Josh Allen? I think Josh Allen's a better quarterback than people give him credit for. I think he showed glimpses of that last year. So to get John Brown as for free, for nothing, somebody, you know, that has, you know, touchdowns on his resume and, you know, 1,000-yard seasons on his resume. I mean,
don't say seasons, say season. He's got 1.
Fine. He has a season. I will take that season over not having that season. But tell me why Marquise Goodwin is falling so low. Is he re-injured or something that I missed?
Well, it's not so much that. It's just everybody's not sure who's going to do what in San Francisco. You know, of course, they drafted not drafted. They got
Deebo Samuel. They got Jalen Hurd.
Who was the guy they drafted last year? I can't. All of a sudden,
Dante Pettis.
Yeah, Dante Pettis.
Only Kittle is secure.
Yeah, I think Pettis. Everybody's considering Pettis to be their number 1. Marquise Goodwin, look, he had a good finish to the season with Garoppolo, 2 years ago. So I think he should be in that mix, and I get what you're bringing up, and I'm definitely not adverse to taking a shot on him late in some drafts, and I have. But I think a lot of people are just concerned about what's actually going to happen there. Who is actually going to be the 1, 2, and 3 in that offense, and they're still trying to figure it out, and that's what I think we're seeing.
Yeah, you can make the same argument about their running backs there. I mean, that's why I said the only guaranteed guy there is Kittle. But of the receivers that are there, Jimmy G's supposed to be the quarterback. He had a little bit of rapport going. Good was having a great season before he got hurt, and then last year was not there. But I don't think we should be completely writing him off. But of the two, I think I'd rather have John Brown at this point.
No, fair enough. John Brown is another one to me. I always consider a best ball guy over every week. Trying to figure out what week he's going to go off, and that for me that's usually almost all the big play guys. And Deshaun Jackson's always been in that category. Guys like that are going to have a few big games every year, but a lot of times they're just going to disappear. And that to me that's been John Brown. He had the 1,000-yard season. I'll grant you that. And he's definitely explosive. He can make those big plays, but it's just never outside of that season, which was his second season back in 2015. He's been all over the board. Injuries have hit him, and even without the injuries last year, he got off to the great start. Then they went to Lamar Jackson and then all the wide receivers. You ever see like any sports movies, like a baseball movie where the outfielders are sitting down because a guy that came up to the plate can't hit?
I'm appalled right now. Anytime I try to bring up a baseball reference.
That was what the wide receivers in Baltimore did last year when Lamar Jackson came on the field. They all ran a route and then sat down on the ground and just waited for Lamar to run the play.
Sal, let me tell you, I've tried bringing up baseball references multiple times on this show I have text messages coming to me after, don't you ever bring up baseball again on this show. It's football only. So for Jim now to be referencing baseball it
was the only thing I could think of that fit the analogy, so it has to go with it. Okay, I'm going to go with my deep sleeper, and this is a guy I thought started to show a little bit last year. At the end of the season, we started to see glimpses. He's been considered a bust, and if he doesn't do it this year, he will always be a bust. But I'm going to go with Rashad Perriman. I think he's finally starting to see a little bit of the light. And I think if anybody can bring it out of him, I think it's going to be Bruce Arians and him taking the top off defenses and letting that kid go down the field and then just winging the ball to him. So
he's back home too.
And he's back home. So, yeah, I think I've been taking a lot of shots on Perryman late. And again, right now his current ADP is in the middle of the 25th round as the 109th wide receiver. So you're not investing anything. If it doesn't work out for you, so what? He's waiver fodder and you go out and grab somebody else. But I liked a little bit of what I saw at the end of last year, and I'm hoping he can put it together in this offense. I've always been a big, huge Bruce Arians guy, and I think this offense is going to do great things. Thoughts, Sal? Anybody?
I'm with you on that. I hated where he got drafted. I just felt like it put him behind the 8 ball, and I just felt like there was too much expected out of him.
I like the pick, Jim. There's going to be a lot of weapons there too, a lot of mouths to feed. But with his talent and his skill set, I could definitely see taking him late and hoping for a strike gold situation.
And that's it. That's all you're trying to do, and hope it hits. And if it doesn't, then oh well. Who do I need to pick up this week? I'll just drop Perriman and go get him. Okay, so we're going to skip tight ends because I don't want to talk about tight ends. So there's one thing I've been wanting to try for a couple of weeks, and we just never gotten to it. So we're going to try it now. And this is something I found on Twitter that I thought was kind of funny. In the mold of kiss, kill, or marry. This is keep, trade, or drop. I'm going to give you 3 guys, and you're going to tell me who you would keep, who you would trade, and who you would drop. And I'm going to start with you, Andy. I'm going to put you on the spot here. 3 guys are Dede Westbrook, Curtis Samuel, and Kiki Kute.
Okay. I am going to trade Curtis Samuel because I think his value is higher than it might ever be. I'm going to drop D.D. Westbrook because I just don't know what to expect out of that. And I will keep Kiki Kuti because I think he is
He
dynamic.
said cootie.
I think he's a dynamic talent that, when healthy, can change an offense. He was phenomenal coming out of Texas Tech. He had the best hands in the class. I mean, these things were just like fly traps. So I think Kiki is the guy I would keep and pray for health. And you know, obviously he and Deshaun Watson got along pretty well. I think Curtis Samuel is at probably his all-time high right now, unless he backs up all this hype. And like I said, D.D. Westbrook, who knows what to expect out of offense. And if I miss out on that, I'll be okay with it.
Okay, then. Next one, it goes to you, Sal. And your three choices are Geronimo Allison, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or James Washington.
Every year I seemingly decide that some random Green Bay Packer wide receiver is like my breakout player. I was the first one on Montgomery out of my group of guys that I played with a few years back, and I had him on rosters. And last year I was on Geronimo Allison, and then quickly moved on to MVS when Allison wasn't healthy there. I gotta be honest with you. I'm worried about who's going to be the guy out of those two. I know the three wide receiver sets in camp right now are with those two guys in it. I'm a Jake Kumaro guy. I'm the guy who at the end of the year thinks Jake Kumaro is going to actually be a fantasy-worthy player, and I'll play one of those two guys. So I'm going to drop one of the two of them and trade the other one. And whichever one I think I get the most value out of, which is probably right now, because of drafting wise, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is probably the better value. But I'll say let me trade Geronimo Allison, drops a Scantling, and keep James Washington. I do think that James Washington will prove out to be the number 2 wide receiver in Pittsburgh. Well, Jim, just because you got a cute accent doesn't mean you're going to win me over. I think he will end up becoming a factor there in Pittsburgh, and we've all seen who's come before in the mold of Juju and the guys that have come previously as the 2 wide receiver. There's a lot of room for points in that passing offense in Pittsburgh.
Another one.
That's okay. You can join the
team.
People had it wrong. That's fine.
Join the team.
I like being on the short side. It gives me better value. While everybody's drafting James Washington, I can hold off, and a few rounds later, I can draft the actual number 2. So I'm good with that. I'm okay with that. In this one, it's tough. I still take Allison over Scantling, but it's really close. James Washington would definitely be a drop for me. I'd keep Allison. I would trade Scantling, and I would drop James Washington. I just would.
You made Andy drop out. That's how upset he was about that.
And then one last one I'm going to do. I'll take this one. Carson Wentz, Kyler Murray, or Jared Goff. And I got to tell you, the more I looked at this, the harder it got for me. Right now, I'll be saying I will trade Kyler Murray. Just because I think he's got the most buzz, you could get the most return out of him. So I would trade Kyler Murray. I would keep, I would keep Jared Goff. I would, and I would drop Carson Wentz. Look, I know if Carson Wentz stays healthy, he could have a monster year. He could be a top 5 quarterback. I get that. I think this Philadelphia offense could put it together. But Goff doesn't really have the injury concerns. I think he's got a great coach there and a good offense. And I think he'll continue to put up good numbers, even though we saw them tail off after the big Monday night extravaganza against Kansas City. After that, it just didn't look like the same offense. I think they get it back together this year. So I would do that. What's your thoughts on those 3? Who do you like? Who do you don't like? What are you thinking there?
Yeah, I think that you actually hit all the points on the players correctly. Kyler Murray is a guy I probably won't own anywhere this year. I'm just not, first of all, high on rookie quarterbacks, and I don't know. There's this aura of the ability to be a bust around him for me. a guy who was not quite sure he was going to play NFL football and then coming to play NFL football. There could always be the lure to go the other way. It's tricky. So trading him while the value is high, I would agree on. It's tough with Wentz and Goff. But you have to go with recency, and recency shows that Wentz cannot be healthy. And I know that they got rid of Foles, and I know they're paying him, and they're going to put the ball in his hands, but that doesn't mean he's going to be healthy. I have to see it before I can believe it. That leads me to Goff, and specifically who his coach is and what that offense has run like. The 3-level deep wide receivers that are there, the 2 deep running backs that are there now with Henderson coming in this year. It's a much better game plan in that offense. I don't trust Doug Peterson. As for fantasy purposes, he's obviously won a Super Bowl, but his shenanigans and the way he uses players and switches everybody around there, not a fan of it. So I think you nailed it, Jim. I agree with you.
I got one thing. This is one of the things that, I'm a Giants fan. I don't like the Eagles, but their front office is one of the best in the league to me. They just make so many smart moves. They went out and got the great left tackle in this year's draft, knowing that, Jason Peters is pretty much near the end. But here's the other thing that I loved. They gave Carson Wentz a big contract, right? They gave him a $16 million signing bonus. But they set up the rest of it that they actually have an out after 2019 if he can't stay healthy again. First of all, his 2019 salary is only $720K for the year. So if he doesn't stay healthy this year, they can actually get out of the rest of the contract with only having to pay a total more of, I think, $30 million, which is nothing in comparison to the whole contract. So, again, just a smart move on their part. And nobody's really talking about that. Just great front office. I hate the fact that they have a good offense and we have Dave Gettleman. I hate that with all my passion. I hate that. You know what? That's about it for us, man. We're running out of time here, and I do want you to tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on. Give them all a lowdown here of where they can find Sal Leto.
Yeah, as far as just follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter at Sal Leto, SALLETOFF. Also, you can find my podcast, the FF Funhouse, Fantasy Football Funhouse, at the FF Funhouse Twitter page. And you can find our show. We're going to be starting back up again, ramping up, doing regular shows as training camp start here. We're everywhere podcasts can be found. I mean, anybody else to tell you where you have to find podcasts now. It's just talking it to space. And
when are we going to get you on the podcast network, dude?
Yeah, you can bring me over without the other 2 guys. I need some creative freedoms with those 2 guys. I think they're holding me back. I love Steve and Kevin. I started in this business with them. 2 good friends, 2 good guys to work with, and we have a great rapport together. But we're definitely
have a lot of fun on that show. That show's fun to listen to.
It's what it's about. I've always said there are so many more intelligent people out there regurgitating the same old statistics. That's not my brand. That's not my bit. I want to laugh. I want to have fun. I win. I know what I'm doing, but I'm not sitting here talking analytics with you all night. It's just not my thing.
I'm with you there.
And, I did some work with Fanball last year, and I'm hoping to get that gig back and write again with Fanball this year. And if I can't do that, I'll be writing somewhere.
Well, there you go. If that doesn't work out, hit me up. We could probably use another writer on FF Champs. Okay, so there you go. That's Sal Leto. Of course, I am Jim Day. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyTaz. You can also find me every weekday, Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the FNTSY Sports Network with the Fantasy Football Frenzy Show with Chris Ventra and George Kurtz. And then, of course, my other podcast every Wednesday night, the WTF Fantasy Football Show with Tony Cicada and Mike Blewett. Don't forget, we are a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. We now have 18 podcasts, over 35 hours of podcasting goodness each and every week. And you know what? We're not giving up. We're going to continue to grow as much as we can. Please, folks, if you're listening to the show, give us a like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Give us a rating, give us a comment, whatever you can do to help us grow. We'd appreciate it. This is a brand new podcast and we're trying to make it grow. So we would appreciate any help we could get. We absolutely would. Thank you all. We hope you have a great weekend and we are out. Good night, all.
Peace.